Hey everybody, welcome to the Marquez Says Show. I'm your host, Marquez Mosher, and this is my co-host, cohort, and eldest son, Austin Mosher. He and I always seem to bring out the feisty side of each other, and it leads to some very spirited conversations. There's never really any one topic. We see the world from many different perspectives, and sometimes we agree, and sometimes we don't. Either way, it gets very interesting, so sit back, relax, and have a bit of fun at our expense as we explore some of the most unexpected perspectives you'll ever hear about the world we live in. So, let's get started. Welcome! I'm snickering because he just told me my laptop is so bad that I'm in poverty, and I'm like, that's just like wrong on so many levels. But welcome to the Marquez Says Show. I am Marquez Mosher. Here's your co-host, cohort, and the guy sitting next to me,
Austin Mosher.
Wow, look at that. And here we are in another edition, another episode. And this one, we're going to tackle relationships. Now, not necessarily getting too deep into them, but just, what makes them work, what doesn't make them work.
Which type of relationships? Yeah. All relationships?
Actually, yes. Basically, we're talking about just relationships, with ourselves, with other people. Not so much the love relationships. I've got a
good relationship with myself.
I'm sure you do. I can tell by your ego. But not necessarily the relationships that, because there's so many opinions and everything about the relationships with, like, couples and love and stuff, and that's part of it. But just in general, like, what makes a good relationship? I mean, from the start, like, if you had to do the age-old question about what one thing is the most important element of a relationship?
Lying. Okay, no. All right, no.
So this is how it's going to be today.
Okay, so in all honesty, obviously, I do legitimately believe that honesty is the biggest part of a relationship. And if
you do?
I do.
Honestly.
Truthfully. Genuinely.
Authentically.
I would like to reasonably authenticate the intricate little... No, okay.
So you know what? See, when we get into a serious subject, or a not so serious subject, I guess you could say.
We talked about Scooby-Doo, okay? I'm just not in that zone.
Yeah, if you didn't get that one about how you have spirituality, religion, a cult, and how they all tie in with Scooby-Doo.
The green shirts and the red shirts. Yep. That's going to be my new favorite thing for a long time.
You got to try that. You got to listen to our the episode with, like I said, spirituality, religion. That one, we had a guest, my daughter and Austin's sister, Taylor Ann, comment. And she brought up some really good points. So check that one out in the past. No, I'm talking about, because I actually, if you say honesty, and I say, while that's important, I think in some ways communication or / presentation is almost as important, because
I agree. I half agree. Communication is super, super important. But at the same time, no matter how you communicate, if what you're communicating isn't authentic, how well you communicate it can end up being a detriment in the long run.
That's
because
true.
Let's say, like...
And what if you're honest and you don't present it well, the honesty doesn't matter.
That's true. So there has to, obviously there's give and take. There's not one thing that is ever going to be the overriding, this is why our relationship works over others. You have to blend them.
We're talking about communication or onomication. They're combining.
I thought he was having a stroke.
If you combine honesty and communication, we have onomication. See,
communication is exactly what we're trying to say right here.
Communitruth. How about that? Communitruth.
Yeah.
So,
oh God, let's just scrap the whole episode. Let's start over. Let's go back to the franchise idea.
No, this is. I mean, but this is part of it, and I think, you know what? This is a great example of, like our relationship right now. Uh-huh. Sometimes we're going at it and like biting each other's throats and trying to kill each other.
Yeah.
But the other times we're just laughing. And those are the things mainly because, and I think it's both. I don't think there is probably one answer. It's probably both. I think communication and honesty, because without either one, the other one isn't really all that helpful.
Right. As somebody who...
Recently,
I try not to talk about it, but on the show anyway. But yeah, as somebody who just got out of a relationship, like I feel like the takeaways that I'm taking from it is not even so much being honest with your partner, but being honest with yourself.
Yes, very much.
Because it's tough because eventually you get to a point too where you've been together for so long that you want to keep things a certain way, and it's not because you fell out of love or anything like that. It's just that maybe you grew into different avenues. Maybe you want to try different things than what you wanted to do before. Things change in life, and sometimes you can get everything that you were supposed to get out of a relationship, and taking anything more from that becomes selfish and overindulgent on both parties.
Yeah, and it's a good point, because a lot of times with the relationships, they can become a matter of habit. It just becomes just comfort, and that complacency is something that complacency almost more than anything else, except for the inability or choice of not seeing things from other people's points of view. That, and although I think that's probably part of complacency,
right?
Is just that I think that's the worst thing that you can have, because once you lose the drive to be curious, once you lose that drive to want to know more, grow, and that applies in relationships. If you have come to a point where you're like, you think you know everything about someone or something like that, then at that point it's probably over. Whether it's actually over, maybe not, but it's going to be effectively, because you're not trying anymore. And if one person is and one person isn't, that's even worse.
Right. And then in what you're talking about in this scenario, there's always two perspectives, like to bring it back into what we do, right? And what like you do and all that stuff. There's always two perspectives. So no matter how much I or anybody else may feel like, oh, I'm putting this into a relationship, I'm not getting it back. That's not necessarily true, because the other person on their side might be giving you all that they can give.
Yep.
And they might be maxed out. And as the partner in that situation, you have to recognize and be like, okay, well, should I be demanding more? Am I wrong for wanting more? Or is this something I have to work out, or is this something we have to work out?
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of times it gets to a point where it's like, it's something that you individually have to work out. If it's a healthy relationship. If it's something toxic, obviously, then,
Oh, I heard something along those lines about, I gotta remember it. Something to the effect of mutual trauma does not equal compatibility.
Oh yeah, okay, that's true.
And
and that's a more recent thing, because for the longest time, and I see it all the time, and I agree with both perspectives to a degree, is that when you share trauma, then you're more compatible. I've always seen that. It's like, oh, we had the same.
But is it really compatibility? I mean, you can get into an argument about being that the mutual trauma, if you're not dealing with it, if you haven't dealt with it, or.
Okay.
Just
but that's
the mutual
different.
trauma, but even just in and of itself, the mutual trauma, it goes beyond that, because now if you have both had mutual trauma and you've both dealt with it and you've both are somewhat stable with it and stuff, then obviously that creates a compatibility, because there's something that you have in common.
Did you take this from my song? Was this on purpose?
No, actually.
Okay, there's a line in the song, and for those.
Oh, yes, there actually I do. I take that back.
Yeah.
There was when I saw the post about mutual trauma is not compatibility, and yes, I did hear something that resonated that was similar to that in your song.
Right.
I don't remember
for
exactly.
For those listening at home, I'm going to put out music soon, but in the song, there's a line in it that goes, "Carried the same trauma, but acted on it in two different ways."
Right. Yep.
So the point, but the context was that trauma is what brought us together and allowed us to be able to communicate, and it gave us a deeper level right off the bat of understanding of each other.
Yeah.
But we handled it in different ways, not to say one was right or wrong, but eventually that caught up to us in this scenario. And
I just thought that quote was a really good one, because like what you just said, in and of itself, it's true. Just because you've had mutual trauma, that doesn't mean that you are going to be compatible, because it goes so far beyond that.
Yeah.
Whether you deal with it together, like if you had a mutual trauma and you deal with it together and move past it, because that can create a super strong bond. But if you haven't started to do it individually, and oh, heaven forbid that if one person is and one person isn't, that's a death knell for almost any relationship. So you have to be very careful, when you go with that, because you got all sorts of other elements that play into it.
I would argue, though, that it's not so much that sharing the same trauma isn't the compatibility part. I think that part is compatible no matter what. But the step beyond that is what can make it incompatible.
Well, and I think reversing it, what you just said, I think I like with the mutual trauma. Actually, maybe mutual trauma doesn't create compatibility, but mutual trauma does create something of similarity that you can relate to within each other. The compatibility part is how each of you have dealt with it, or if each of you dealing with it together, because that creates the compatibility.
I think it just maybe comes down to a different...
That's what word I was looking for.
I think it just comes down to like where we draw the line of what is compatible, quote unquote. Like, because to me, I can be compatible with everybody. Does that mean I want to put the effort into it? Do I want to try? Not necessarily. Right. Sometimes.
Yep, that's social loner.
Right,
That's
exactly.
why I use that. That's why I use that.
I didn't used to be so much that way. I used to want to be in all these different places and experiencing all these different things. But now I just don't really want to as much. Honestly, the quarantine and stuff has kind of changed my perspective drastically. It's made me kind of revert into myself and be like, okay, well, and going through a breakup at the same time, everything happening was like...
And I also think that you'll find out that when you go back out and venture, whether it's relationships or just places, things of that sort, you may appreciate them more too, because of the fact that you've had some inward growth and you've had some inward introspection. Because the traveling, Mark Twain said something about traveling is the cure all for ignorance of some sort or something like that. And I really like Twain, and I don't remember which one it is.
I like Val Kilmer.
No, don't even know.
For those who don't know, Val Kilmer played Mark Twain.
Moving on. But yeah, he said something about that, because if you go abroad and you see other cultures and the stuff, it does give you some insight to how their relationships work. I mean, relationships across the board in different countries, different cultures, they're all different too. But I think base elements, like we talked about, whether it's honesty, whether it's communication, those matter. But there's some cultures that don't feel that, for example, lying. Like, if they don't know, it doesn't hurt them. There's cultures that is a predominant element of it. Now, not everybody will subscribe to that within that culture, but some do, and it's acceptable because that's the way it works. And it's hard for sometimes, if you want to call it modern sensibility, or just for me, it's just kind of like, well, that just seems kind of shady. But
right. And again, it comes down to culturally, what do you believe? What do you see and all that stuff? To me, going back to like the original question of what is like the most important thing for a relationship is, before you can venture off into relationships with other people, you have to have a strong relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
And I know that's like the age-old thing, is you can't love somebody until you love yourself. I don't know if I necessarily wholeheartedly agree with that, because I do think that you can love somebody and still not be at peace with yourself. And I think that that'll cause problems in the long run, in the long term, because you won't be able to necessarily exhibit that love very well, because you don't know how to, because you haven't done it to yourself. But it is 100% possible to do that. But to have like a truly amazing relationship you have to be at peace and know who you are, or at least be open to the idea of what you can be. And you have to be able to exhibit that and live by that every single day before you can even get into it with other people.
And I think part of that, knowing yourself, like, loving someone before you love, the fact that you recognize that, and then that you say, I'm not fully, I don't know myself fully yet, or I fully love myself, or whatever, to work on myself, that is actually a sign of loving yourself. The awareness. Right. Again, it's that self-awareness that I talk about with the think, care, live more. It's that self-awareness of knowing what you need to do. Sometimes that you just don't do anything. That's the part of it. Today's post, I did something that Taya had written about cost.
I saw.
And
it was good.
And the question, or the comment that I had on there, was definitely about, don't just know your worth, but understand your worth. And that goes a deeper level, that knowing your worth is great. But if you're in a relationship and you say you know what you're worth and you're not going to settle for less, that's wonderful. That's actually a great starting point. But why? What is it about when you say you know your worth that makes it so valuable? Because that's going to bring up, like you mentioned, for compatibility. It's being honest with yourself, and it's communicating not only to yourself, but also what you're going to need to communicate to your partner.
True. And there's a lot of people that think, this will shade thrown, there's a lot of people that think they're worth more than they are. Yeah. And sometimes it's a defense mechanism. I would say most of the time it's a defense mechanism. But instead of having that defense, be open to the fact that, okay, maybe these things I say I am, I'm not. and then go back and be like, well, do I want to be those things I say that I am, and then work towards being them? Or you know what, maybe that wasn't that important. I don't want to be this.
Right.
I'll be more true to myself, which is this, and I'll accept that and cultivate and work on those things that are already inside me.
Yeah, and that's a realization that everybody has to go through. And sometimes the relationships themselves are what instigate it. Sometimes the relationship is what actually you realize that's not what I thought, or it's a different angle to what you thought you were. Because when someone criticizes you, dismissing them out of hand is usually doing a disservice to everyone involved.
Right.
Because while they may not have presented their criticism well, that doesn't necessarily mean there isn't merit to it. And then in your relationships, that's again comes back to what I was saying about how you present something and how you communicate something can be just as important as what you're actually communicating.
Definitely. And everybody has a right to feel heard and validated. So like, let's say somebody's critiquing me or whatever. I'm not great with taking criticism. I'm also not the worst at taking criticism, but I'm going to try my best to make sure that person feels heard. Now, whether or not internally I'm thinking, you know what, that's a load of crap. Everything you just said is literally false, and I've never heard anything more wrong in my entire life.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily going to exhibit that. It depends on the situation. Sometimes I will.
I'm horrible. I'm horrible. I'll admit it.
I know, you're so bad. Oh my God.
I'm
trying
horrible.
to give him any sort of...
I am horrible at it, but I make a conscious decision, though, now. I am at a point where I can literally know that. I know that I'm putting up my defenses. I know that I am putting up the walls and stuff. But internally, I am also going, you're doing it again, so stop, listen, and processing whatever's being said. So I know... forward. I know that it's there, and then I'll listen to it, and then usually it's one of the few times that I'm a quote unquote processor, because I like to just make decisions. I like to just think of something, go, okay, kind of one of those people. I think it was Colin Powell who said something about 80% making a decision. The 80% certainty is better than waiting around for more.
Yeah,
Maybe I apologize to Mr. Powell if that's not you, but. He deserves the respect that he deserves. So I don't want to misquote him, but that whoever said that. I
apologize for not knowing who you are, Mr. Powell.
Colin Powell?
I don't know who he is. I apologize. You sound important.
You need to look it up. He took one for the country when he shouldn't have, and it kind of he was a military member. Under Bush and for Iraq War and stuff, and he was
well then I definitely I definitely respect that.
Yeah, anyway, so we can look it up, look him up,
read a book.
But that was that part of it is that's how I am. But in relationships, that if you're like I'm with my wife, she's a processor, so I know that if we go through something, I need to give her time, 24 hours, 48 hours, whatever it is, in order to process the goes through it, and it works perfectly and complementary with me, and that's why our relationship works so well.
Right.
One of the reasons our relationship works so well, but you have to be able to recognize that, and that's something that we didn't really bring on. We talk about honesty, we talk about communication, but also recognition of what you need and what your partner needs, and then also whether or not
that's something you can do,
right,
and live with.
And again, I guess that comes back to honesty as well. So it's those are huge factors, and it's interesting. We haven't really, I think everything, a lot of things at least, not maybe everything, can be bundled down to the communication, presentation, and honesty in a relationship, because lots of other things, the way you get treated, comes from those. Like if you're someone who actually likes to have flowers once a week and such, well, that's great, but that's coming from probably the recognition of your partner understanding that that's something you like and wanting to please you. So I guess you would have to add in that extra, well, no, the desire to please comes from, I would think, an honesty of knowing who you are and what your partner is. I don't know. I'm trying to tie those things in, but it's not.
I like where you're going with that, and I think that the listeners probably understand where you're going with that, but I'm going to take it in another direction.
Well, before you do, I think I put out a hypothesis, and then I proved it wrong right away.
Yeah, so kind of. All right, I love what you were saying. However, I do not think the desire to please comes from within. I think, well, sometimes it does, but I'm not sure it's as from a good a place as what you're saying, because I think that a lot of times people will try to please somebody else because they can't please themselves, or they feel like maybe they're not getting pleased, or there's something missing within, and it makes them feel good to do other things for other people.
Yeah, now you're talking about projection or martyr syndrome and things like that. So you're right, because it depends.
But I would venture.
But guess what? Guess where that comes from? Being honest with yourself. Boom, ding, 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 ding,
Well,
ding.
kind of. Maybe somebody thinks they're being honest. This is like, well, I'm not a great. You don't know that. Some people are genuinely bad people, and they feel like to make up for it, they are being honest with themselves. It's just not coming from a.
If someone is truly a bad person, they're not thinking that they're a bad person trying to make up for it. Because in and of itself, the ability to be aware, to know that you're a bad person and that you're trying to do something to make up for it, you're not as bad as you thought you were.
Okay, so
now, you can still be a bad person, but you're not as bad.
I do agree with that. I do agree with that because, this is a good opportunity to get into something I've actually wanted to talk about on this show that we haven't had a chance to. And this actually directly ties in with relationships.
And that would be?
Cancel culture. Hate it. Hate it, hate it, hate it. I think it's stupid.
How does that work with relationships?
Because, what do you mean? Because canceling somebody has everything to do with a relationship, whether you actually know the person or you don't. But cancel culture is about whether or not you're going to forgive somebody for something that they did or not, which is all about relationships. It's your relationship with somebody, whether you know them or not.
Okay. Yes, it's very tangential, because if we go off on that about TV shows and hosts and media hosts and stuff, that's not relationships. That's not about relationships. I understand where you're going with your cancel culture. The cancel culture, for me, the cancel culture is essentially, hey, you're trying to cancel someone because they have a certain view, express a certain view, whether it's now or in the past. You don't like it because the times have changed, so therefore now you need to cancel them and basically suppress them and censor them.
I wouldn't even say it's suppressing or censoring, but what it's doing is taking away the ability for people to atone for things that they've done wrong. Like, everybody's going to make mistakes. So as soon as you... And this is where it ties into relationships. Is because people don't just cancel celebrities. They cancel people in their lives. They may just not call it that.
I heard on the news, I heard a really good one about, instead of cancel culture, there should be conversation culture.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
And there are some things that are worth, quote-unquote, canceling over. Like, somebody... like really dramatic or something like that. Like, obviously you shouldn't allow
racism.
Everything to happen.
You shouldn't promote bigotry.
You shouldn't allow stuff like that. However, if somebody is expressing that they are sorry and are genuinely willing to work towards it and atoning for that, we shouldn't just discount them. Like, we can't just throw away everything we don't like. Here's the thing: a lot of people that follow this whole cancel culture thing, they're like, we need to change the police, not the police. They need to change prison reform and all that stuff. It should be about rehabilitation and not locking people up and punishing them. Okay, well, what do you think cancel culture is? It's just the way in the mind of saying, okay, well, I'm putting you away. I'm not going to allow you to be rehabilitated. It's the same thing, and that's why I think that I hate the hypocrisy in it. I think that it does a disservice to everybody. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? I think what I'm saying makes perfect sense.
I think the cancel culture, you're right. It in and of itself, the ability to not see beyond one aspect of someone, I think falls into perspectives, like I was talking about. And to just outright cancel someone because of that, because you have the power to, I would agree. But the whole cancel culture, to me, it almost feels like it's made up, because I think it's always been there. There's always been ad boycotts. There's always been people that. So I don't really think it's anything new. I guess I don't get as riled.
Well, I'm not saying that I don't think it's new. I just think it's exasperated by social media, and especially Twitter, because everybody has a voice now and they can do it. But I don't think that people are being critical or conscious about what they're saying.
Right. I think it's much more weaponized now as a way to, as it ends to a means, as opposed to an actual function of somebody did something wrong and they should be held accountable for it. And now turning that into, well, what they did wrong is very subjective, because a group of people, and depending on how loud that group is, they're the ones that get to say you did something wrong, as opposed to having the conversation and going, hey, do you understand what you did wrong? Do you understand why people think you did wrong? And hearing that response, having that conversation. Because there is some things, though, that I'm quite fine with, where the person said something, they have a history of it. All right, you don't deserve to have the platform or whatever you're on. And to wrap that back into relationships, it's the same thing. I've always said one of my favorite talks, or one of my favorite pieces when I talk about relationships, especially when I'm talking with other people, coaching, consulting, whatever you want to call it, that I ask, what is it in their past that makes you think, gives you any indication that they're going to do anything different?
Right, and
now,
that's important.
If there's little things where, well, this time he did this or she did this, and this time they did this, then okay, maybe we can build on that. But if you look back and you realize that this person hasn't really done anything, especially after repeated attempts to ask, what is it in their past that makes you think they're going to do anything different? Then, quote unquote, they can be canceled. Cancel that relationship. Be done with it. And
yeah, but what I'm saying is you have to take everything in consideration and think about it.
Right,
and
absolutely.
people don't do a whole lot of that right now, especially when it comes to cancel culture specifically.
Yeah.
It's very much a knee-jerk reaction, and then a lot of people see something that somebody else said that somebody else did, and they don't actually investigate what happened.
Right, and I think this is going to be mitigated when people start going towards thinking for themselves a little bit more, because I do think there's a little resurgence of people realizing
there's
that
a groupthink going on right now.
Yeah, where we're going to start.
I'm willing
thinking,
to take you on Twitter. Let's go. I'll take you on.
There will be actually some more thought into things, because we are in a quote unquote cancel culture, but I also don't think that. I think it's just. I just think it's a name for the same thing that they've always done. There's always been groups that have said something and pull your ads, pull this, pull that.
Right.
They need to be gone. They need to be gone. And at some point, it will. It will just kind of go back to those who really need to be canceled will be canceled, and those who made a mistake should probably be told that you made a mistake, and see how how they come from it. And relationships are the same thing. You have to be able to forgive. And the forgiveness sometimes is more for yourself than it is for them.
Yeah.
But you can't keep, and
you don't have to forget. That's another thing. It's like, just because somebody does something bad, you don't have to forget that they did something bad. I'm not advocating for that. Like, if you come to the terms and end up being like, okay, you know what? I'm going to forgive this for me so that I don't carry around this negative energy, but I still don't want you in my life. You need to stay away.
Right.
That's still okay.
Yeah.
And
because the forgiving part is that you're holding on to it, and the worst ones are the ones when the other person has no idea, has moved on, doesn't care.
Right. Doesn't know you're doing it.
I mean,
then what are you doing it for? The only person you're hurting is you.
Yeah. So that's a huge one right there. But yet, we talk about the relationships. We've talked about like when we're in relationships, but how exactly is it different when you're getting into the relationship, like when you're dating versus being in a long-term relationship? Because that's a totally different aspect, and your honesty, the communication, presentation, all of those elements matter, but they're all slightly different when you're trying to court someone or when you're trying to meet someone. And I've always said, people talk about dating is hard. It is, but I always said relationships are the hard, because the relationships take much more work to keep going, because the dating part is kind of not acting. I mean, in a way you're acting, you're just putting forth your best persona.
Right. I would agree. I say that a lot. That's like my phrase on the shows. I would agree. And then I immediately go on to disagree.
With all due respect.
Yeah, right. With all due respect, you're wrong.
Yeah.
No,
and look how well I take that criticism. Thank you very much. Come on, spit it out.
Well, I'm formulating my thoughts on this because I feel like it's
you
very
think
layered.
Dating is easier than relationships?
No, I hate dating. Personally,
right.
That's why I don't feel like I'm the right person necessarily to talk about this. I really don't like dating, and I'm not a good person to talk about dating with either, because I don't date a lot, and anytime I did date, I ended up being in a relationship with that person. So like, except for maybe one or two times.
Right, but that's because dating was a way for you to get into a relationship.
Right, but I used it like that. I never used it to think like, oh, I'm gonna go on a date and have fun or whatever. It was always, I want to be in a relationship with this person, so I'm gonna date them and then almost immediately get into a relationship.
No, you know what? And I was very similar to that too. And then, and I didn't do a lot of dating either. But I've realized now more so. Obviously, I'm not dating now, but I look at it from the perspective of, it's always good to have a friend, to make a friend. And now now it's nice because I'm obviously married, happily married. I'm not dating, but I also can still court friendships, I guess is a good way of saying it. And especially with online and my business when I'm talking to people, because I like being a conversationalist. I like being friendly. And that makes relationships, and like, again, I'm not talking about the romantic relationships, very easy. And excuse me. And then that's a dangerous thing, though, because sometimes you get caught with other people that don't understand your intentions. They misinterpret those intentions. And it's nice because the older I get, and the more chubby I get, the less and less.
You're losing weight. Don't listen to him. He's losing weight.
I just mean it in
and
a
he's
sense
being
of
healthy.
I just mean that the intentions go away, because the people that I talk to, whether or not, men, women, whatever, that there's a less and less aspect of what's his angle.
Right.
And that's a nice thing, because now I can have many more conversations and many more open. I can be nice. I can compliment. I can actually try to build relationships without
pretenses.
With a lot less of that, as opposed to, say, 10 years ago, where it was kind of like, well, what are your motives? What are your intentions behind that? And again, I would think for like you, that may be an aspect that you could take on about, understand if someone piques your interest. Sure. Truly, you could go out on a date, go have dinner and stuff. And knowing now that you fall in love easily, quote unquote, that you get in relationships, it probably won't happen because of the fact that you're self-aware enough to go, okay, am I really doing this because I want to get back into a relationship? Do I really like this person enough to get into a relationship? Is it my pattern? Is it my habit? And chances are it won't happen as much.
Right. But it sounds exhausting. Like, to be honest.
It's not any more exhausting than what you do with any other growth aspect of your life.
Well, I just mean the physical date. Like, going out and doing something like that. And, like, talking to... Like, I'm all for meeting new people. I like meeting new people. I like talking to people. But I don't want to go get to know somebody like that right now. Like, that sounds exhausting. And to be honest, and I don't want to have to pretend that I care. That's another thing. Is right now, I really don't. Like, I don't care to get to know somebody on a date level.
And that's
you know
fine, because maybe you're not ready for dating. But I also... This is when I would turn around and say, yeah, this sounds like an excuse and a crutch for you not wanting to actually get back out there.
How though? Like, it's just being honest. We're talking about honesty.
No,
it would be dishonest. Yeah.
Are you actually being honest with yourself, or are you just taking the easy way out?
No, it's 100% being honest with myself.
But you can't guarantee that unless you actually dated.
That's not true.
No, yes, it is, because if you went out on a date and realized it basically proved, oh my God, that was horrible. I expended so much energy. I didn't enjoy it, and it wasn't because of the person. It would reinforce what you've been feeling. But without that, it's just your opinion.
But you don't. Well, yeah, everything's always just an opinion.
Like your
you
hypothesis.
Don't have to prove something wrong for it to be right in the first place.
Well, see, your perspective right there is that you were going to prove it wrong.
Yeah, that's what you're saying. Is you have to go on a date to prove that your initial instinct was wrong.
No,
so that you can validate that it was right.
Not wrong.
Yes.
I just want to validate.
You don't. Because but what I'm saying is, you don't need to be validated. You don't have to disprove something to validate the original thought. You can.
Actually, it's kind of how it works, because otherwise it's just an opinion.
Yeah, but everything is just an opinion
until you move forward and try to find out whether or not it's really the case.
Right, but you don't have to do that if you're already so assured that...
That's what people who are perfectly jerks and stuff, that's the same attitude they are.
Yeah, no,
that's
it's
the same
not,
thing
though,
about,
because it's...
You know what? I am so confident in myself, I don't care what anybody else thinks.
No,
I don't need to worry about what other folks...
It's not confidence, it's the self-awareness that you were talking about.
Yes, and I'm talking about that there's sometimes that self-awareness is you, the one who said that it could be a false self-awareness. Yeah, basically, it suits your needs.
Okay, but the false self-awareness in this would be, you know what? I can do whatever. I can go have this.
No, it's not. It goes both ways. You can have positive and negative. You can do your self-awareness either self-defeating or self-promoting. It can be either one. And at this point,
it could be either one. But there's some things that you just know.
How would you?
And nobody else would know.
Oh my God! Did you seriously just say that?
Yeah.
There are some things you just know.
Yes, there is.
There is some things you just know.
Like,
so let me get this straight. So 6 months from now, you meet someone, and magically you're going to realize that, I guess I'm ready to date. I'd like to get them know them better.
Potentially. That's way more likely than me going on some like random date and then being like, oh yeah, that was a good experience.
So what if you wasted 6 months? I'm just using hypothetical timeframes.
It's not wasting, no. Like there's
it's not that it's wasting. That's probably not the best word. But without being open. There.
It's not that you're not open to it.
Oh,
it's just
you're not open to it. I think everybody listening can tell it. You're not open to it.
because I'm aware of the fact that I'm only gonna waste somebody else's time.
See, you're assuming that you're not just making a friend. That your idea of dating.
Need a friend.
Hold on. Your idea of dating is of just a means to a relationship, and that's fine. If that's your definition of dating, that's fine.
Definition of dating.
That is fine. However, there is other people and there's other definitions of dating in the sense of I'm just going to get to know this person because hey, I like hanging out with him. And you may find out that, you know what, this person's actually, I like hanging out. There's no romantic ties here, but we do like hanging out. We do like going to the movies, and it just becomes a friend.
Well, I tell you what, if I meet somebody that I end up wanting to spend time like that with, I'll be open to it. But I don't know nobody like that right now. And
How would you know anybody like that if you weren't open to it? How would you be able to recognize it?
Because it's exhausting. I want to focus on me.
You can do both. They're not mutually exclusive.
I don't think
Oh my God. You cannot tell me.
No. They're not mutually exclusive. However,
how can you
cannot. I do believe this, and I'm a firm believer in it. Is you cannot 100% build yourself if you're also trying to build something with somebody else. You can't do both of them 100% at the same time. Just like you can't do two tasks to 100% the fullest at one time. You do have to pick one to be completely invested in that.
Yes. But why would you need to be 100% working on yourself? Okay, I guess the fault in that is that if you're 100% working on yourself and you're not open to other possibilities, then you're not actually 100% working on yourself.
Yes, you are.
No,
you can be open to other people and other things can influence you.
No, it cannot be. If you have shut yourself off from other opportunities. No, let me just finish this one.
Okay, go ahead.
If you shut yourself off from other opportunities, that is almost the antithesis to building yourself and growing and learning. Because if you are closing other avenues, then that is like the opposite of it. That's the opposite of growing and learning and trying to build yourself.
But you're not shutting yourself off to opportunities. You're just being aware of the fact that some opportunities aren't as worth it.
You said,
you don't have to.
Let me quote, 100%. If you are working on yourself 100%, then you cannot work with something else or work on anything else 100%.
Yeah.
Okay,
that
so
doesn't
that
mean
means
that you don't necessarily delegate 70 or 80%.
Do you realize the flip side of that? Yeah, absolutely, I would agree with you on that. The flip side of that is, do you realize if you're in a relationship and you're trying to build that relationship 100%, then that means you have to let yourself not.
Right, which is why right now I'd rather become more 100% me until the point where I'm comfortable enough to be able to, like, you know what? I am like totally happy and secure the way I am now. I'm going to give this version of me to somebody else.
Right, but what I'm saying is that 100% that you say you're working on yourself inherently isn't. Because it can't be. It is, because by definition it cannot be.
No, because what you're including in the working on yourself is we do agree that you have to accept other things into your life and other influences.
But you're not.
But that's part of the 100%. That just doesn't mean I'm going to give it to anybody else yet. You can still accept things in.
What I was hearing from you was that you are not open. You are not open to other possibilities.
Yeah, but that's what you're hearing. That's not what I'm saying. Is that what you're saying or not? No, I'm saying
are you or are you not open to other possibilities when you're working on yourself?
What are the possibilities? That is way too vague.
What if somebody asked you out?
I don't know.
Oh, the silence is deafening.
I don't know.
Okay, no. According to you,
I would probably turn it down.
Okay, the answer should have been right away. No.
Well, I'm thinking about it because...
Of course you're thinking about it. You know why? Because if someone's showing interest in you, then
it feels good that somebody's showing interest.
But, and there would be no reason why you wouldn't contemplate it. It doesn't mean you have to say yes. It doesn't mean you have to say no. But the fact that you paused and the fact that you would consider it.
Yeah, but that's an ego thing.
It still doesn't matter the reasons. The point is you were open to it.
But you're open to it for the wrong or I was open to it for the wrong reasons.
No, it's not.
That's an ego thing. That's me thinking, oh, somebody wants me, that feels good.
Right,
but that's a distraction.
No, it's not a distraction. That is actually ability to build confidence. You can use that in your building. You can realize.
But then you built confidence from somebody else. That's not real confidence.
Of course you did. Compliments are easily. Why can't you accept a compliment?
No, you can accept a compliment, but then you're going to get accustomed, at least me personally, will get accustomed to receiving compliments from outside sources. No, and someday you're not going to have those outside sources. Extremes. No, I'm talking about from me personally.
Exactly. So again, that's a self-awareness that you're growing so that it doesn't happen. once something is brought to someone's attention, especially in a relationship and that self-awareness, a relationship with yourself, once it's brought to your attention, technically it can never really go away again. I mean, it can be forgotten. Some people do. It doesn't mean that anybody's going to work on it or act on it.
Right.
But the ability just to realize that, well, I'm afraid to take compliments from other people because see,
I just feel like you're taking things like you're twisting what I'm saying.
I'm not twisting things. I am basically what you're saying is this isn't what you're saying though. You just got through saying that you cannot take compliments from someone else because there may be a time, or you cannot build your confidence on compliments from someone else. And now, yes, I agree with that. You cannot build your own confidence solely on compliments from someone else. But the reasoning behind that was because at some point those compliments may not be there. That's not what I was saying. I'm saying that the confidence that you get from someone complimenting you is fine. Let it be what it is for what it is.
I know.
So
we agree on that.
Right. But you're like when someone asked you out, you're thinking that, well, I'm only contemplating this for the wrong reasons.
Which is true.
But you're not complimenting for the wrong reasons. That's what I'm trying to get you to understand.
Wait, no,
you're complimenting. You think it's the wrong reasons because you're following this line of thinking.
Are you saying the compliments are wrong? What are you saying?
Let me finish. My point is that you are saying that if I accept this compliment, if I'm contemplating this person asking me out as a compliment, that's a wrong thing because it's just appealing to my ego, and that's wrong. Tell me if that's not what you said.
That's not what I said.
What did you say?
Because taking a compliment and saying yes to somebody asking you out are different. You can be flattered.
I'm just asking you why you would, when you said, that's what my point was, is that I said you showed that you were open to it. If someone asked you out and you thought about it, contemplated it,
right,
that means you're open to it. The possibility of going out.
I guess, but on a technicality,
it's not a technicality.
It doesn't mean that you're necessarily open to it. Let's look, as a person, hold on.
If you weren't open to it, you would have said no.
Okay, well, obviously, as a person, I'm very open to a lot of things, but just because I'm open to it you should not be 100. You can be open to viewing and seeing everything, but you should not be open to every opportunity because some opportunities are wrong.
That's not what I'm talking about.
I know, but
I'm not talking about that at all.
But you're speaking from your experience, whereas my experience is I have gotten into relationships I shouldn't have been in because I was open to it, and that was the wrong thing to do.
No, you're twisting your mind. It wasn't the wrong thing to do because you were open to it. It was the wrong thing to do because it wasn't the right relationship. Not because you just were open to it.
They're the same thing.
They are not, Austin. There is steps involved in the relationship. You don't go from being open to a relationship. You have to make a decision with that person.
Go ahead.
When someone's open to the relationship, you still have to evaluate. You were a poor evaluator. It wasn't the fact that you were open to it. You made a poor decision, and I don't mean poor. I shouldn't say poor decision. You made decisions that were after the fact. Those were after the fact of being open to it.
Yes, but those come as a result if you're open to because then you start to justify things. And you start to be like, okay, I'm open to this. I see maybe they're doing something, maybe what they're doing is coming from a place and I'm going to be open to that.
I think I figured this out. You think that just because you're open to it, you have to do it.
No, I'm saying that because...
Well, wait, in your relationship analogy, if you're open to a relationship, or open to a date at least, just someone asking you on a date, and you're open to it, and you think, I'm saying
that encouraging to always be open is also indirectly can lead to being open to justification of things that shouldn't be justified.
That is a individual flaw, if you want to call it, because being open in and of itself is not the problem. It's your evaluation of that opportunity. If you don't have very good critical thinking skills, if you have a decision-making process that's flawed, all of those things, that is what's going to cause... I know, but
sometimes you can't...
Wait, hold on, let me finish. That problem, that's what causes the problem. Not the opportunity. It was not the opportunity. No. It was how you handled the opportunity.
Okay, but sometimes there is no critical thinking involved. Sometimes you have to just trust your gut. Sometimes there won't be something that signals that you shouldn't do it.
I'm fine with that. It's still not the opportunity that caused it.
But it can be.
The opportunity was there, and you realized your gut, no critical thinking, your gut said, this is not a good idea. No, I'm not going to do it. Okay.
That's what I'm saying, though.
No, but if you're not open to the opportunity, in other words, if you're not even listening, if you're not even acknowledging that someone might be interested in you and want to ask you out, they're flirting with you, and you've just shut yourself down completely, that is a detriment to you. That's my point. That is a detriment in any situation. If you have put a wall down and are unwilling to recognize what is going on, that is a problem. And if that's your excuse for 100% working on yourself, it's the antithesis to it.
Right, but that's what you're saying is like you have it in your head that it's an excuse. It's not an excuse. It's being aware of the fact that that is something that's just not on the table right now. It doesn't make sense to do so. Like
I am not. That's fine, because you can choose not to take advantage of the opportunity. I get that. That's fine.
So what difference does it make if the opportunity presents itself or not?
Because you would want more opportunities. The ability to say yes or no. Why would you take away your ability to have opportunity?
Why do I want more opportunities?
You always want more opportunities. That's called perspective. That's called the points of view. Seeing things from someone else's point of view. That's the point of it. That's the whole point. That's the reason why it's so important to be in tune with yourself. Knowing your gut, your intuition, having critical thinking skills, decision-making skills. That's why it's so important.
Yeah, but what does that have to do with somebody asking me out and me not wanting to go on that date?
Okay, not wanting to go on that date because you don't feel you're ready to go on a date because you feel that it'll lead to a relationship. That is the perfect self-awareness. But the ability for if someone's flirting with you, if somebody is trying to be nice to you, maybe if it's not even flirting and stuff, or this is even a better case scenario,
right.
If somebody actually isn't flirting with you, they're just being nice, but you think they're flirting with you, and because you've got a wall that you are not open to dating, you basically are discounting this person who's trying to just be nice to you. They're just trying to maybe make you friends. They like you. They like hearing with you.
Well, I think you're assuming what my reaction or actions are going to be to somebody being nice to me or whatever. It doesn't mean I'm going to not be nice or close it off or shut them off or anything.
Well, then that would mean you are open to the opportunity to hear what they had to say.
I'm always open to the opportunity of hearing what somebody has to say. That does not mean that I'm going to go out with that person.
That's not what I'm talking about. You started this part of the segment with the fact that if you're 100% committed to yourself, then you're not open to anything else. You can't be open.
No, that's not what I said. I said that if you're 100% giving to yourself, then you cannot give that same 100% to the building of a relationship, which we agreed on.
No, that's not what. No, you said you can't give to 100% of that to something else.
I said you can't give 100% to two things at the same time.
Well, that's just mathematical.
I know.
Yes, but my point is that 100% of building on yourself. This is where I'm saying is that it's not 100%.
Well, you're assuming
that's the reality.
Because you're assuming that if you're 100% building on yourself, that you're not listening or looking for other things outside of yourself.
Right.
You can be looking for influences and accept.
How about this? If you're trying to build on yourself, if you're trying to learn, grow, expand your mind, expand all of that, you're part of that expansion is experiences. If you're not expanding your experiences, then you're not necessarily expanding. So,
well, you have to have quality control, just like in everything else in life.
But you would have to be open to it and make a judgment on that. That's my point. I was literally talking about the fact that if you say that you're working on yourself 100% and you are not open to certain things, then it's not working on yourself 100%. Because working on yourself, by definition, would have to include opening yourself up to new realizations, opening yourself up to new experiences, opening yourself up to new knowledge. That's my point.
But I agree. However, I do not think that dating somebody has to fall into those categories.
No. And again, though, I agree with you. I said that. You don't have to go out on the date. But if you're completely, in your mind, closed off, that's a closed-minded section of what you're doing in yourself. And that is the opposite of growing. That's the opposite of learning. That's the opposite of opening yourself up to experiences. That's my point.
I do not think it's the opposite. I think that it might be a hindrance in a certain avenue.
For the sake of argument, for the sake of the conversation, I will give you hindrance.
Because the opposite implies you're going backwards. You're not going backwards if you made a progress and then decided to stop progressing.
You could argue that you are going backwards because you're not moving forward. So
Yeah, but that's not what backwards is. Backwards would be taking deliberate steps back.
You are. The deliberate step is the decision, the conscious decision to shut things out.
No, because you could also just argue that, well, you've been making progress, you've been going forward, and now you don't want to go forward anymore. You're going to stay here, sidestep to a different avenue.
And then what? When you get to the next avenue,
You figure it out then.
do you go forward?
Yes, you would pursue other interests or other opportunities.
Right, and this conversation would be the same with that then. You would just shift the same thing.
But that's fine. But what we're talking about specifically is dating, which is something right now I do not believe that you could do or I could do on a personal level.
I'm not talking about you dating or not dating.
That's literally what the entire conversation
my whole conversation
was. We were talking about relationships.
No, my conversation was about basically with your ability to say, I don't want to date. I'm not looking for a date. I'm not ready to date.
Right.
That's an awareness. However, if someone asked you out to contemplate whether or not...
Okay, why do I have to?
It's an opportunity to reevaluate your beliefs.
I don't need somebody to give me an opportunity to reevaluate my beliefs.
Yeah, actually, somebody does, whether it's yourself, somebody or yourself. You have to constantly be reevaluating your beliefs.
Right, but on my time. I'm not evaluating myself on anybody else's time.
That's my point, is how your time, some people say, I'm not going to reevaluate my beliefs until someone dies for 20 years, 30 years. That's not positive. That's not working on yourself. That's not anybody who's actually trying to grow.
Yeah, but they're lying to themselves. They're doing it to avoid something. I'm doing it because I'm conscious of the fact that...
So what is it going to trigger for you to reevaluate your beliefs?
I don't know. More than 2.5 months.
No, I understand that. I'm asking you, what would it take? Is it going to be your loneliness? Is it going to be somebody maybe asking you out?
I don't know. You can't predict the things that are going to impact you before they impact you.
Okay.
You just have to let life happen.
I am coming back to the point that if you are not open to the whatever triggers you reevaluating your beliefs, then that's a negative.
Yes, obviously.
Okay, but that's the 100%
thing. But you're
thing.
assuming that I'm not open to the triggers. I just said I'm not open to the symptoms. There's a difference.
You're not open to the triggers. That's what you said.
Says who? No, I said that I don't want to do something. And then when you asked me, what if somebody asked me out? I contemplated it, decided, well, me contemplating it comes from the ego, so no, it's not a good idea. I'd probably say no.
Right, but again, contemplating is not necessarily coming from the ego. That's a point of reevaluating
but it is a point from the ego right now. Like, right now, and not all the time. It might not be that way 2 years, 3 years, or whatever from now.
What's the problem?
Right now,
I guess I don't find the problem with it being from your ego.
Because then it's not about actually developing anything. It's just about, taking something from somebody else to make yourself feel good, which I don't want right now.
Where else would a compliment, where else would you...
It's not about compliments.
No, I'm asking this other question about where else would you take it from? Where else could it come from?
If being validated by my... What?
If someone gives you a compliment. If I say, I like your music... Where else could you take that from? You said you take it from your ego. Where else would it come from?
That's not the point. No, the point was we were talking about dating. You keep taking it back to compliments. I wasn't talking about compliments. I was talking about being asked out. There's a difference.
The compliment and being asked out, because you said that being asked out is a compliment. It's coming from an ego.
No, I didn't say that. You did.
Then why is somebody asking you out? Why would somebody ask you out?
Because that's different. Because then you have to actually spend time with somebody and invest in something. If somebody compliments me, if you say you like my music, then I might take it from the ego. I might not. I might think, oh, well, I'm glad that it impacted this person.
Okay, I'll just use your dating scenario. If someone asks you out...
You use the dating
scenario. No, I'm asking you, because I'm trying to understand, Austin.
Right.
I'm trying to understand this reasoning behind... But what it comes down to is my fundamental disagreement with the fact that you said 100% working on yourself basically means that you have to close other things off. Now, I do agree...
I didn't say that. I said that you can't do two things at the same time. I never said that is the right thing to do. I just said that is what...
I could have swore that you said working on yourself 100% of the time precludes other things.
It does, but I never said that was the right thing to do. And I never defined what is a part of that 100% of working on yourself. Again, it's working on yourself isn't closing everybody off and thinking you know best and working in your own head. That's not what it is. But it's also being aware of the fact that you don't have to invest in some sort of situations in other people just because there's an opportunity to do so.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
That's all I was saying.
That's not what I was hearing. And I say that because not being open to the opportunity to make that decision. I think that's where we're disagreeing, is that I don't see a receptiveness, and I see that as a detriment. I don't see the receptiveness to being open to something, and I feel that's a detriment. That's where I'm coming from.
Right, but again, and then I would challenge that is, why is the being receptive to this thing
I'm just saying
so important?
All of them. Because this is an indication of being receptive to basically anything.
Right, but if you're accepting of every opportunity...
not accepting. I'm talking about...
I mean, even valuing. If you value every opportunity, or the ability to have an opportunity.
That's not even it either. Those are wrong words. You're all putting judgments on the actual opportunity. I'm talking about the awareness. Just the awareness that there is an opportunity that presents itself. And then the critiquing. And then the evaluation. And then the choice.
I mean, great. Okay, cool. So you have the awareness of the opportunity.
You know what? Groupthink evolves from someone not doing that. The groupthink evolves from someone who doesn't look at opportunities, doesn't look at other perspectives, doesn't look at the fact that there's a possibility of something else. They just think that that's it. That's all. That there's one thing. It's tunnel vision. It's one thing.
Groupthink comes from somebody thinking that way and then forcing it on other people.
No, not force. No, it's not. Groupthink is not forcing on someone else. The groupthink is the ability,
or manipulating other
is the
people
lack of someone being able to think for themselves. That's the groupthink, where one person says something, another person says something, and then someone else is too lazy to decide for themselves, so they just agree with so and so. And then you have so many people doing that. That becomes the groupthink. But that's not here nor there. The point is that my fundamental thing is being open. Is literally being open to different perspectives, different opportunities, and then the evaluation that goes into it. That was all. That was my critique, is that what I was hearing was that you had the opinion of you don't need to be open to all those other possibilities.
All right, well, fine. I'll rephrase it. You could be open to it, but people almost all the time will take being open to an opportunity as doing it. And I don't think you should. And there are some things that I think that you... What?
Well, you
should. I don't think you need to be open to every opportunity, to be honest. I think that it's good to have opportunities. I think it's good to be aware of opportunities, but right. I don't think you need to be open to every opportunity.
Being aware and open are the same thing. I'm using aware and open, and
okay, but they're not the same thing. Because if you're open to an opportunity, that means at some level you're encouraging it.
No,
and I don't think
you keep putting words. You keep adding meanings to these words. Open to it is literally, I'm aware of it. I might like doing it. I might not like doing it. The same thing, aware of it, is the same thing. There's an opportunity. I'm aware of it. I might like doing it. I might not like doing it.
I'm aware of skydiving, but I know I don't want to do it.
Exactly. That's great. But some people would be completely not even thinking about it because they weren't thinking about it. They said, I'm never going to do that. Why? Just because. They didn't think about it. There was no critical thinking. There was no thought behind it. Well, it was because I'm not going to do it because my dad says I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, that's obviously bad, but that's not the same thing. In our whole argument, I was explaining why I believed a certain thing, so I obviously put critical thought into it.
You still were equating being open to it or having an opportunity in front of you was more than not taking advantage of it. That was where you were coming from what I was hearing. If there is an opportunity available, more often than not, you're going to take advantage of it.
I hear what you're saying, and I get your point, and for the most part, I agree. But what is the point of being open to every opportunity if you know you're not going to take a few of them? It's like, at what point, why does it matter?
Because if you're not, you don't know which ones that might have you missed.
Right, but if you critically thought about it and you know, okay, this is not something I want right now.
Again, that's after the awareness. Right, but
you don't need an opportunity to present itself to be aware. You could be aware of something that hasn't happened and know, okay, if that happens, right. I don't want to do it.
Again, that's after the awareness. Choosing not to do it.
Yeah, but that's not awareness to the opportunity. That is just awareness in general.
Yeah, it's the
right, and we agree on that. It is aware.
Again, you think just because there's an opportunity, you have to do it. No, you have to be aware that there was an opportunity, then decide whether or not to do it. That's all. That's all I'm saying. You keep you're repeating it. You are literally repeating yourself that if there's an opportunity, that means I'm going to take it.
No, that means that if there's an opportunity, I guess I just don't see the point. If there's not that opportunity, then I just don't think it matters as much. It's like, okay, I know how I feel about something, and it's not just blindly feeling that way.
No, you have whatever reasons go into it. But closing yourself off to thinking that you're never going to, like when people say never.
I know, but when you do that, it feels like you're telling somebody, well, they're wrong for doing so. And I think that's how some people will take it.
No, I am not telling them. I am saying that, okay, yes, you're wrong if you are going to immediately discount something without giving it a thought.
Okay, but what if somebody already did give it a thought? They gave it a thought before,
Well,
and
then
they
I guess
just don't want to do it.
Then I guess they already crossed the threshold of awareness, and they thought about it.
Are they wrong?
No. They can make their decision. I'm not arguing with if they decide or not decide, but there's those who have not done it for themselves. If they don't think for themselves, if they don't make that critical decision based on the valuation that they made, then yeah, that's wrong.
I agree with that, but we weren't talking about them. We spent like a half an hour talking about me, which was where I'd say is different.
Because in your situation, it was the fact that you were cutting off. Like, again, we came back to the compliment or the date, the
Right.
asking you out. Because at the start of the conversation, it would have been I'm going to ignore anybody who's being nice to me, flirting with me.
That's not what I said
or not
at
being
all.
nice. But Austin, it's inherent. That's the point of what I'm trying to say. It's inherent that if you're shutting something out, now.
Okay, but I didn't use any of that language. I just said I wasn't wanting to date, and that I wanted to be able to focus on myself, and I didn't want to do things that came from an external source.
Okay, and does that so that essentially says that you are against dating. If someone, you don't want to date
Right now, yeah.
Okay, so if somebody asked you out on a date,
like I said, again, there's the original consider. I don't ever just say no or yes to things blindly. I always consider it. But I know for a fact, if somebody asked me out, I would consider it, be like, okay, well, it's nice that somebody wants to go out with me, but like I'm not in that place and I don't want to do it. Because I view dating as a way into a relationship.
That's perfect. But someone who is completely a dead set against dating, hey, would you like to go out Saturday night? Nope.
Yeah, but I don't do that ever. So when we were talking about me, like my reasoning.
So then why weren't you agreeing with me?
I was agreeing with you,
No,
but what I
you
didn't
weren't.
like was how you kept going at me personally about certain things, which is what I was arguing, because I did know how I was feeling and I could articulate it.
But you weren't, obviously. I mean, that's...
I was! You just weren't hearing it!
No, that wasn't, because you were still... Even just 5 minutes ago, you were still saying that if there was an opportunity that presented itself, that most people are going to do it.
That's true. I stand by that. Because when people
Okay,
are...
that's fine. But that is not... That's an assumption and a generalization, and that's my point is
I know, but you were doing the same to me when you assumed that I was going to be closed off to it. When in the very beginning, we even acknowledged that I considered it and that I said it came from the ego.
Right. But that contradicts your 100% thing. That was why that was the contradiction.
Yes, it does contradict it, which is why I would say no, and the saying no keeps you in the 100%.
And then that would come back to my point about it can't be 100%.
No, because you evaluated it. It combines both of ours, because you evaluated the opportunity, decided you didn't want to do the opportunity, and now you're back in your 100% category. And that's not to say...
Back in your 100% category?
Or you go to the 100% category. Whether you were in it or you weren't in the first place doesn't really matter. But at some point...
Okay, so if I understand
you'll never be 100%.
So if you're saying basically... that you're saying if I'm 100% working on myself and I don't want any distractions, I don't want to date, I don't want to do any of that stuff. But I'm going to be open to it. And part of that 100% is I'm at least going to be open to it, but I don't think I'm going to do it. I don't want to do it. I have no indication that I'm going to because I want to work on myself. Right? Is that an agreement? That part of that 100%.
I mean, more or less, I guess. Yeah, kind of.
Because I could go with that. I could go with the fact that 100%. I could go with that as far as part of that 100%. It does include considering options that are available, but I want to work on myself, and that will not help me work on myself at this point. It'll be a distraction.
Yeah.
Or does that work?
Yeah, and it would be a disservice to myself and whoever I was going on a date with.
That's fine. I can agree with that. I actually can agree with that. But that was when with the 100%. That was what I just don't want anybody to think that. I guess this is part of it. Is I don't want someone to think that by using the excuse saying that I'm working on myself 100%, that somehow gives them an excuse or a crutch to disengage or to shut down or to block off other things, because that's what people that's the exact same thing that people, when they say I don't give a crap about what other people think of me, that's what they're doing. They're 100%, I am 100% confident in myself or 100% believe in myself, therefore I don't need anything else. I don't need anyone else and stuff. that thought process is extremely destructive.
Right. But like what you said, you painted it perfectly though. That's a crutch. That's not.
But people use that, right? But that's what they use, that line of thinking, though. They use the line of thinking of saying that I'm 100% working on me.
I know.
I'm 100% about me. You know, that's the reason why the verbalization of it. Mm-hmm. That's the reason why I was like, that's not good.
I know, but you. Yeah, no, you're right. I guess I see your point. I don't feel like I ever did that at any point in this conversation.
Well, it was literally you saying that 100% working on myself. That part with 100%.
Yeah, okay, but that part is true. We keep coming back to that part.
No, because if someone who could basically say, I am 100% working on myself and I don't need you, I don't care what you think about me.
Reasons. It doesn't mean that the statement is any less true. It just means that they're applying it in the wrong way. They're weaponizing something that shouldn't be.
They're using that statement. Correct. They're using that statement.
Right, but that doesn't change the fact that the statement is true. Like what you said, mathematically, logically, there is no way around it. The statement and the logic behind it is sound.
Okay, I don't get it. The 100%. If you say I'm working 100% on myself,
you can't be giving 100% to a relationship.
Right, but if I'm working 100% on myself. If you mean that you're working 100% on yourself, then that inherently means you're looking to grow, looking to learn, and so on and so forth.
Which is a good thing.
Right. So, but people will say that I'm working on myself, 100% on myself. I don't need you. I don't care what you think. I know
they're weaponizing something that shouldn't be weaponized. They're not actually working on themselves. They're using it as a crutch to say, hey,
yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
but my original phrasing of it, I stand by. It's right. I think it's correct.
And I think you also made it sound like though that it's not worth 80% working on yourself and 20% working in a relationship.
Well, I did say that at some point. Look, I don't think that anybody's ever 100% working on themselves. I think that's something to strive to in certain situations.
It's an integration.
Yes, and obviously a well-balanced life is having everything in it. But at some points you have to restructure things and be conscious of what you allow in. And if you're going to allow dating, and this is what I see, and as somebody my age in Los Angeles, people dating, they're almost all the time it's a crutch. And they're using it to get out, and they don't have to be by themselves, and they can take stuff from other people or whatever, and it makes them feel good. It's like and then later they feel bad about it, like, oh man, I wish I didn't do that. I feel bad about this. I feel like I did something cheap or whatever.
No, I agree.
It's like and it's like I see that, and everybody has the right to feel however they want to feel, but I don't want that. Like, and so I think I'm disillusioned to what dating can actually be, and I don't think that I know for a fact right now that's not the situation I want to be in, and until I would to meet somebody that I felt like it wouldn't be that situation, I just don't. It's not that I'm not open to it. I'm just aware of the fact that the pool right now is not something I really want to jump into.
Yeah. So no, and I agree with you, and all I would say, as long as you're aware that someone may pique your interest and surprise you. Someone that you never thought of, and all of a sudden there's an opportunity. Just to be open to that opportunity. That's all. That was my point of that.
Yeah.
Because some people that take your approach are going to be like, they're going to make a conscious effort because that's what they're telling themselves. That's what they're internalizing. They're subconscious, and they are going to make actual behavior changes to protect themselves and to reinforce that. And that would be a detriment to them. That's what I would say is a detriment.
Yeah. So
that is the thing. So
yeah, we agree fundamentally.
Well, how is that, everybody? So we're going to cut this, and if you got to this point of the show, you're going to realize that we made a few little edits because this was Austin's dating show.
I know, what the hell? That was not what I signed up for.
But yet, hopefully somebody out there actually can take from that, can understand from that, see what I was saying, see what Austin was saying, and understand, and reach out if you have questions. I mean, reach out to Austin if you kind of resonated with that and kind of be, hey, I understand where you're going through. Hey, I understand what you're saying, or if similar situations and stuff.
You were trying to play matchmaker so hard.
No. I wasn't. Actually,
I know. I'm kidding.
Quite honestly, yeah. I assumed it would actually be people going through the same thing and not looking for anything. That actually were kind of like, I get it. So, and reach out to me as well. I'm going to give you much more of a parental aspect. If you want more of a peer thing, then obviously go for him. But So, in the meantime, think more, care more, live more, and remember, you can change your life. You can change the world one decision at a time.
Yes, you can.
Anything else? Nope.
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 Talk to you later.